206. That's the amount of subscribers I need to reach my goal of 5,000. Will you help? Today's video is all about the second game in the Castlevania Advance collection, Harmony of Dissonance. I beat Circle of Moon last year. I did a video on that. If you're curious about my thoughts, maybe worth a refresher because I'll be referring a couple elements from that game which carried over into this one. I'll post a link to that in the description below. If you're keeping record at home, Circle of Moon released on June 11th, 2001. Harmony of Dissonance came out September 16th, 2002. Both were for the Game Boy Advance. Hence the name, the Castlevania Collection, the Castlevania Advance Collection, right? There, you got to have the word advance in there. So let's talk a little bit about this game. Let me pull up my notes and tell you guys some of my thoughts. It was a lengthy experience. It took me about 17 hours to beat it. There was a lot to do in this game, and not that I was trying to be a completionist, because I was not, but as true to all Castlevania games, lots and lots of backtracking and getting confused and figuring out what upgrade did I just unlock and what does that allow me to do, looking at the map, trying to figure out what areas do I need to go to, and working my way through areas over and over and over again until I stumbled across somewhere that I needed to be, and I was like, yes, I figured out where I need to go. So that was, I think, what added to my length, but I did enjoy it, except at the end. The end was a little bit frustrating, and obviously I'll talk about that in a few moments. This game circles around a guy named Just Belmont, J-U-S-T-E. I've seen his name pronounced Just, and I've seen his name pronounced Juste. I'm going to call him Just. Maybe that's not the correct pronunciation, but that's the one you're going to get. Anyways, Just Belmont and his friend, who is kind of... Oh, and by the way, I guess I should point this out. Just Belmont is the grandson of Simon Belmont, the hero of first Castlevania. And this game takes place about 50 years after the events of that game. Anyways, his buddy Maxim seems to kind of have this rivalry going on between the two of them. It seems like Maxim's always trying to prove to Just that he's just as good because Just has this Belmont bloodline. Anyways, Maxim goes off missing, comes back with amnesia, and only remembers that he thinks he kidnapped their childhood friend slash girlfriend slash love interest, Liddy. And Just is like, well, we got to go find her. So Maxim doesn't remember much. As I said, he has this weird amnesia. But he's like, hey, I think I remember putting her in this old castle. Let's go find out. And that's where the game begins. Throughout the adventure, you'll obviously uncover the story of what's going on with Maxim and his amnesia and what's going on with Liddy. You meet some really interesting characters in this game. Death, interestingly enough, plays a very large part in this game, which it was cool to see that Castlevania was trying to invest more in some different story elements. And I appreciated the fact that while it was very traditionally a Castlevania game, there were a lot of attempts, in my opinion, to kind of push the story in a little bit different directions. Now, it is a Game Boy Advance game, so understand the dialogue is just like, you know, half the screen and like a couple words in each block. It wasn't pages and pages of dialogue, but it was enough to keep the story going. We even got the word damn in there a few times, which was pretty edgy for Super Nintendo-esque. Well, I know this is Game Boy Advance, but that era, right? Of those kind of like, ooh, that's a little edgy for, you know, these guys, which I appreciated. I think it made the stakes a little bit higher, no pun intended. Get it? Stakes, Dracula? Okay. Anyways, so this game definitely, to me, took a lot of criticisms that I felt were going on in Circle of the Moon and tried to fix them. The first and probably the most important, they added a dash button. Now with the left and right triggers, you could easily dash left or right. You could moonwalk or you could dash into combat, didn't matter. The nice thing was it definitely sped up the game because you're going to be doing a lot of backtracking. That was nice. However, though, when you're actually using your weapon, at that point, you stopped. So if you were jumping and you swung your weapon, you just basically like you were locked in that animation. It made combat a little bit more stiff than I was used to, but once you understand the system, you'll appreciate when you can attack and when you should dash. It definitely is not a spam heavy game. If you spam the attack and you're not dashing out of the way of enemy attacks or jumping into an enemy and attacking, you're going to get punished and you're going to die more often than not. So it does force you to kind of take your time and attack, and while you're attacking, also kind of think about what is the counterattack going to be and how do I prevent getting hit from that, which is, you know, I like that. I think that's a smart move in this game. So you use the traditional weapon, the vampire killer. As you know, that's like the whip of the family. And you get a couple different power-ups. I didn't think there was many power-ups this time. I felt like they were a little light on power-ups. I'm looking at the Wikipedia. It says there was the holy water, which to me was like the go-to because it does like an AoE on the ground and it does like kind of proc a couple hits for damage. The dagger, which is just a straight shot. The holy book, which basically casts like an aura around you. A cross, where you throw, it's kind of like a boomerang. It hits enemies and then comes back to you. A gem and an axe. I don't remember. Oh, the thunder gauntlet too. Thunder gauntlet lets you punch really fast. I don't remember seeing the gem, and I don't remember what that ability did, so I must not have used it. The nice thing is, you know, you have your traditional ammo system, which is the hearts you could collect from all of the various like chandeliers and torches you'll find and destroying those. But the cool thing that they did, and this is another improvement, I think, from Circle the Moon, is with the magic system, there are books that you find. There's 5 books that are hidden throughout. I think I missed one. I think I missed the monster book, but I looked at that online. I didn't care so much. But the book, when equipped, when using your weapon, will use magic instead, and it will give you a different attack. That was fun. It did not feel nearly as cumbersome or nearly as convoluted as what I saw in Circle the Moon, where I had no idea what I was doing and I had to grind enemies to be able to find spells. No, these were just very clearly hidden, right? These are very clearly marked items in the world. When you get them and you have these abilities, these weapons I just mentioned, they do different things. And I like that. It was simple. It made sense. I knew what to expect. Maybe some people will look at that and say, hey, you know, this is a criticism because they're taking away from some of the collective element of the game and this excitement of like, what is my cast going to do? Here, I liked that it definitely reduced the tool set, but it was more methodical. So I appreciated that. And again, when you have the dash kind of implemented in combat felt very consistent, which I think is very, very important in a Castlevania game. It also contained, the game also had a lot of armor pieces for your, you know, your gauntlets, your feet, your chest, your helmet, that at first didn't seem to really do a lot other than tweak stats mildly. But as the game went on, I started finding items that did very specific things. Increase the damage of holy water. Increase the damage of this type of attack. Let you find more treasure. That sort of thing. And I really like that. I wish that was introduced earlier in the game, though, because I feel like by the end, I kind of had like my set that I was pretty happy with. Unfortunately, it's not cosmetic, so it's just stat-based only. But I was pretty happy with what I had, so I didn't feel the need to really experiment. But I think earlier on, I wish I would have found some of that stuff. You will find different pieces of gear that are required to be worn to get different endings in the game and open different doors. So they really did try to kind of invest further in this RPG element, which I appreciated. It wasn't too heavy, but it was just the right amount. As I said in the game, you're going to be walking around trying to figure out what's going on with Liddy, trying to figure out why is she missing. And this is where the game is really fun, that it doesn't really tell you what to do. I know that probably sounds like that is another great thing, but it does a really good job of funneling you, at least at the beginning, in very specific areas. Like, hey, you probably need to go get these double jump boots. Like, come over here. Oh, you found them. Good job. Now go off and explore. But the map does feel very convoluted at times. And in a really cool and incredibly annoying thing, simultaneously, you find out that there's actually 2 castles overlaid on top of each other. There's a castle A, which is like the world of light, and a castle B, which is kind of like the world of dark. And as you teleport through, it takes a while before the game actually tells you, hey, you're actually in 2 castles. but you're very clear that something is wrong tonally between the two. Additionally, it's sometimes hard to explore everything because you need to sometimes do something in one castle which will impact the other one directly. Breaking a wall, for example, in one castle will break the wall in the first castle. Things along that nature, which is confusing if you have no idea where you're supposed to go. And you're like, I think I need to be here, but I can't get through. Sometimes the answer isn't in the current map you're in, it's in the other map. And once you start to get more waypoints, and once you start to get more abilities to move around the map quicker, then you can really appreciate the design. But initially it was like, wait, what is going on? And that's why I say it was cool and frustrating at the same time. There weren't a ton of puzzles in this game. As I mentioned, there's a couple really particular things that stand out to me that were very frustrating that I didn't understand. And I think that's something to keep in mind that, you know, when you're playing through this game, it's not going to be like some crazy original idea of like nothing along those terms like Breath of the Wild. Like, how do I get through here? Oh, shoot this with fire or cast it. No, it's not like that. It's going to be pretty basic. But at the same time, it was frustrating because I'm like, I've done everything else. I know the solution is in this room. And it was just in the wrong castle. So keep that in mind. For all the completionists out there, there is a really cool mechanic in this game where there is an empty room, which your character essentially makes his own. Doesn't add any value to the game other than if you collect everything, you do get an attachment for your weapon. But going around and finding different things like tables, chairs, beds, pillows, these sorts of things, and like furnishing your room was fun. And I could see as somebody who's like a completionist, collecting all those things was interesting. And, you know, you could check in on your room and kind of see the progress. Didn't give you any other buffs that I saw, which was a little lackluster. I thought it'd be more fun if it gave some sort of reward. Nothing was more frustrating than working my way through a very long stretch of castle with basically lots of enemies and difficult, you know, kind of gotcha mechanics with spikes and all these sorts of things, and getting to the end and finding like a piece of silverware. And I'm like, this doesn't help me. It goes to my dopey room that I wanted a piece of gear. I wanted a spell. Like, give me something cool. Didn't always get that. So that was kind of weird. There were 3 different endings. I got the good ending because I thought you had to wear certain pieces of gear to beat the game, and that wasn't true. That's okay. The endings only vary by what you're wearing at the end. You will get all of these things throughout basically the progression of playing the game anyway. So it wasn't like a game like Elden Ring or something Sekiro where you had to do multiple side quests to get a special ending, and the endings weren't always really that different. I guess one was because characters notably missing. But, you know, going through basically all that fun stuff you did, and then you get to the end and it's like, oh, are you wearing these things? Okay, you get the good ending. Oh, you're only wearing a couple things? You get the so-so ending. Oh, you didn't have any on? You get the bad ending. That felt a little odd. But that's okay. Again, you know, keeping in mind this game was from 2002. The fact that they had multiple endings at all, I think was kind of neat. And especially in a Castlevania game. So I appreciated that. My big criticism, though, and I'll close out the video with this, at the end of the game, after you feel like you've done everything, you've taken out death, which was a really interesting mechanic that you had to go fight this guy. He was even in the game, and he kind of is explaining the story to you a little bit, which was cool. The game basically is like, okay, go beat the game, and it's not really clear where to go. You have to go find all of these body parts from Vlad, you know, Dracula. And they are incredibly hidden in the weirdest places. I had to use a guide to find a couple of the pieces. I was so confused. And I was like, oh, here? And it's like, yeah, you have to have all the power-ups in the game, all the keys. There's a lot of locked doors you don't get to. You got to go find all the keys to open the doors, and all the double jump boots and the other abilities that allow you to do different things, break through walls and these sort of things. Put them all together, then go all the way to this one part of the very, very ass end of the castle, drop down through like this hidden door, and then like triple jump, and then it's like sitting there. I'm like, who would have ever found this? These are things to me that should have been more clearly marked on the map. And these are, to me, much more of like the northern stars that I was missing. That's the only criticism I had. Everything else made sense for the most part. So I ultimately enjoyed this game. Looking at the Metacritic reviews of the game, it scored incredibly high. It was an 87 back at the time, and I think it holds up today. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I spent almost 20 hours completing this game, and I really liked it. And it's great value because it's part of that Castlevania Advance collection, which Circle the Moon was in there. I absolutely love that game. Now I've played Harmony of Dissonance. So I will get to the last game, the Aria of Sorrow, at some point. I don't know when. That game came out the following year, so this will have even more improvements, I assume, from the other two. But that video will come in due time. It's going to be a while. I'm going to retire from Castlevania for a moment. But I wanted to get all my thoughts in one video and talk about it because this is a game I think that's very near and dear to many people's hearts. And it was a game I think a lot of people look back at in their childhood fondly. And if you're a goofy guy like me who totally missed the boat, well, you can now enjoy it too. So do yourself a favor and check out the Castlevania Advance collection. There's some definite home runs on there. That will wrap up today's video. I want to hear your thoughts on Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance. Did you like the 2-castle system? Did you like the magic? Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.